Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and like always, I'm Brian. So, I don't know if you guys know this or not, I like modifying stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be a computer rig, which I know I've done a lot of videos about modifying computer cases and things like that. But, pretty much if I think I can change it and it will better what I'm doing, I'm going to try to change it and hopefully not break it. So this might be just a little bit off topic for what you're used to seeing on the channel. I will be modifying a stroller. Now basically, let me set this up for you. We got this stroller because we have two kids and it's just easier to get around when you have a double seating sit and stand stroller. But I also have a tiny car and this won't fit in the tiny car unless I change it up a little bit. So today I'm going to show you how to make a two-seating stroller fit in a tiny car, Chanley style. After this intro, some of you might be thinking he's just going to cut a bunch of pieces off of it and then it'll fit in the car. That's not the plan though. The plan is I'm going to modify it so that everything you see here will still be there. It'll just be easier to take apart and put back together with ease. So that way it'll still fit in the trunk of my car and I can still have, all the operating parts. This is my troublesome part right here. This guy. When this sticks out, it makes it about a foot too long to fit in my car, and the way this collapses, it just gets in the way. The idea here is that I'm going to basically take it apart. I'm going to glue in some magnets into the posts, so that way it'll snap into place and I can easily take it off or put it back on without having to remove screws or worry about losing any of the parts. Now before we start the project, I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the things you're going to need. I picked up some, 5-minute epoxy. This one says it's good for like 2,500 pounds, but we won't need it to be that. And it's instant mix, so you don't have to worry about like mixing it or anything. And it comes with a little applicator, so hopefully pretty sure this will fit down inside of the posts. So, I'm gonna fill the post full of epoxy. The second thing I have are magnets, because the posts are ferrous metal, so hopefully they'll just be able to lock in and out if I use the magnets. And they are 1/4 inch by 1/7 inch. Screwdriver, take the bonnet off. 2 types of Sharpies. This one to mark, you'll see, you're gonna need 2 different colors, a light color and a dark color. It doesn't have to be Sharpies, it's just what I have. I got a small skewer for measuring down inside of the post. I got my Dremel. I got 2 different types of Dremel heads. I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna use them. Some needle nose pliers. I got my gloves and my safety goggles. I wouldn't want Bill Owens seeing me use a Dremel without eye protection again. I don't think he'd be happy with me. I got some carpenter tape or some painter's tape, just so that way I can keep the mess down and try to keep my work clean. And then I got an assortment of different kinds of vices and clamps and stuff like that, so that way I can figure out how I'm going to clamp things down and basically make sure everything works out really well. Moving on to my biggest problem. These are about the best magnets I could find, but they're too long to basically go inside the posts and still work. So I'm going to try to cut them in half. This is the tough part. With the research I did online, I couldn't find out how to cut ceramic stuff. I mean, I found like one YouTube video where it was a couple of jackasses basically breaking some drill bits to cut a circular ceramic magnet into like quarters, and it was a train wreck. Yeah, and that was the best idea I saw online. So I'm gonna try a Dremel. Hopefully it works. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this set up and start taking stuff apart, and let's see how this project turns out. So I'm going to start off by just taking these screws out and removing the bonnet. And then I'll just set that aside for later. And then I'm going to hang on to the screws just in case, but I don't think I'm going to need those anymore. Now this is where the skewer is going to come in handy. I'm going to go ahead and try to figure out how deep the posts are. so to have an idea of the amount of clearance that I'll have between both of them, so I know exactly how much space I'm going to have to fit the magnets. See, if you look here, match it up. The higher up line was the front post, and as you can see with the mark that's on there, we have a decent amount of clearance right there to fit the magnet in. And then for the back post, going to have about 1/4 of an inch to work with, so that's going to be perfect. And just to make sure how much area I have, do that. Alright. And now I know exactly how long I can cut the magnets. Alright, so I went ahead and I double checked my measurements. So if you see right there, I used the silver marker to line up where I'm going to cut it at, basically. And I'm going to try it this way first with the Dremel C-clamped down, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to C-clamp this piece onto something and then try to Dremel it that way, because it's just too small to try to hold and Dremel at the same time. But I'm pretty sure if I just do this carefully with my gloves, I should be alright. So here it goes. I apologize for the noise. Okay, so that was like super surprisingly easy. I just scored it a little bit and it just broke. So I don't know if it was the heat or what, but that's pretty much a perfect piece right there. I'm going to go ahead and test it, and then I'm going to cut the rest of them, and then we'll get to putting it together. So a few of the pieces I cut were a little too long. They snapped off just a little too long. So I'm going to go ahead and use this to try to round them down a little bit so they fit into the post. Next step, I've already prepared the syringe of epoxy. Go ahead and just press it through, mix it up slowly until it gets to the tip. I'm going to stick it down in each of the posts and fill them up with a generous amount of epoxy. Okay, let me stop the video right here. This sounded like a good idea until I actually had to deal with it later on. Do not fill up the post holes full of epoxy. I overfilled it. It covered the magnets. It was not a good plan. Just take the magnet, put a little bit of epoxy across the bottom, stick it in, wait for it to dry. Good to go. Yeah, don't fill up the post holes. It sounded like a good idea. I thought there'd be less of a mess. But having to go in and Dremel all the extra epoxy off the top of the magnets turned out to be a giant dust mess, which was much worse than what I thought I was going to have to deal with just a little bit of spillover of epoxy. So yeah, don't fill the post holes. And stick the magnets down in there. Wrong way. Make sure to stick it in the right way so that it fits in. Goes all the way down to the bottom and press. Yep. Should be good. All the way to the bottom and press. Make sure it's all the way down in there. While this is drying, I'm going to go ahead and grab some Q-tips and kind of swab out the inside walls of the post just to clear off any of the extra epoxy. That way it doesn't get in the way when I'm trying to put the bonnet back in. Like I said, I gotta work kind of quickly because this stuff is going to dry up fairly quickly. Alright, it is a 5-minute epoxy, so I'm going to give it a couple of minutes and I'll come back and test it. as you guys can see, the project was a success. By being able to take the bonnet off and put it back on more easily, I've basically reduced the length of the cart when collapsed by about 18 inches, making it much easier for it to fit in my car. In fact, it fits in my car better than a single stroller does, which is pretty sweet. I do have it disassembled back there just for the fact that I'm not sure how cured the epoxy is, and I don't want to leave it in there overnight and then have it become one very solid piece. So I'm going to leave it out, and this week I'm going to go ahead and test it at Disney to see how it really works out, and I'll get back to you guys with those final results. The Disney trip actually yielded a lot of information that's very useful. I would say that if you have rambunctious children, by rambunctious I mean destructive, this might not be the best plan for you unless you can find stronger magnets. The ceramic ones are nice, but if I could have found like more of a cow magnet quality, something that would really have a strong magnetic force, then that would have worked out better. During the trip, my son would get grumpy and he'd try to like pull this down like that to get the sun out of his eyes, and the back post would come out. It wasn't that big of a deal, but we ended up, having to stop, put it back in, and I really wasn't sure why that was happening until I brought it back home. Now what it was is I had put too much epoxy, so I had to go through with the Dremel and clean it out and make sure the surface was nice and flat so that the mating surface between the post and the magnet really lined up better, and now it sticks in. I had him test it, and he got frustrated because he wasn't able to pull it out this time. So that's always a positive, right? But like I said, it's just a quick little yank and it comes out. Before I go any further, I do want to show you guys something really fast. My stroller actually has a clip release on it. So while I don't really need the magnets in here, I did this as a demo for everyone else. And it actually turned out to be a positive thing because my wife actually likes having the magnets in here so that she can pull the bonnet out much easier without having to mess with the clips. So, well, my wife has a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old to wrangle when I'm not around. And so it just makes her life faster and easier that way, so she's not having to corral the kids while messing with the stroller, and just the frustration level is much lower. So like I said, my happy little project turned out to actually be a real big positive in my family, which was awesome. And I got to cut, magnets, which was pretty fun. Never done that before. It's kind of scary, but it was a lot easier than I thought. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. All my social media is in the description, so if you need to get a hold of me, go ahead and go and check that out and see all the things that I got going on in my different social medias. Just as a self-promotion, kind of a shameless plug, I am doing a rig of the week on my Facebook, so if you have anything that you've rigged up, even if it's a stroller like this, I'd like to see pictures of it, and I'll post one thing a week, and you guys can all like it and talk about it, and it'd be awesome. So that all being said, this was modifying a stroller Chanley style.